The Big D, WDRC, remembers the way it used to be.
Marx. Marx. Forget it. Hey, guess who we got with?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Guess who we have on the phone today? Join us on our show of WDRC Remembers is the infamous, the well-known Bob. What was his name?
He really made his marks here in Hartford for many, many years.
Bob Marx.
Hi, Bob.
From the fun and sun city of the world, Miami Beach, live. It's me, little old Bob Marx, right here. I'm in Miami Beach.
The Italian teddy bear.
Now,
that's who I used to be. Yep.
You're lovely Miami, and it's gorgeous there. What's the temperature there?
Oh man, it's an oven.
It's an oven.
You can make pizza. You can make pizza on the sidewalk.
Now, you're down in Miami doing some sightseeing and stuff, but you're originally from was it Vero Beach?
Yeah, I live in Vero Beach. I came down here because Mount Sinai Medical Center is here.
Okay.
And so I had a little business at Mount Sinai Medical Center.
Yep.
So, and then I'm going back to Vero Beach later on tonight.
But you say where Bob is from. Bob is from New Britain, right? New Britain. And
actually, let me set the record straight, okay?
Okay.
I was born in Hartford Hospital.
Okay.
And I moved to New Britain when I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5. I guess I was like that, 4 or 5. My dad had passed away at the young age of 32. And my mom had 3 children and little children who were at the time 3, 4, and 5. And she really didn't have a whole lot of money to herself. And we moved into the projects that were brand new at the time, by the way, government housing in New Britain, a place called Melikowski Circle. So that's where I spent, I think, 3 years before I moved out to California. So I moved out to the LA area when I was 7.
Oh, I did not know that.
Really? Holy Toledo.
See, you learn something new every day with me, man. Just talk to me. Ask me questions. I'll answer.
Now, when you were 7, Bob, were you doing midday on the radio then, or pretty much just morning drive? I mean, you've always had the pipes. We know the voice.
I did morning drive with Captain Kangaroo and the Lone Ranger.
Oh, boy, those are the days.
So when did you move back to Connecticut from California?
I was 9 or 10, so I only lived there a couple of years. You see, my grandmother, who lived in New Britain, couldn't stand the thought of her daughter, my mother, being away on the other coast. So she used to call crying a lot. You got to come back home. You got to come back home. So we packed up the car and moved back. So that's how I wound up back in New Britain. And then shortly after that, we moved out to West Hartford. And after West Hartford, moved back to New Britain. And I've been to so many schools I can't even count, honestly.
Wow.
My elementary schools, I went to like 5 or 6 different elementary schools.
What made you your mother decide to go to California?
My grandmother, my father's mother, and his 2 sisters, my 2 aunts, lived out in Duarte, California. No, I'm sorry, Monrovia.
Okay.
And which is right down the street from Los Angeles. They live in West Foothill Boulevard. And my aunt wanted to come and take us out to live with them. So she showed up one day and said, I'm taking you back to where you belong. You belong with us out in California. So my mom didn't really have a whole lot of attachments, except, her own mother. And we went. And it was a road trip in a 1957 or 58 Chrysler Imperial. One of those long boats with the satellite things at the end in the back. Yeah, that's what we did.
Wow.
Man, oh man. Now, Bob, you had a lot of things happen between those boyhood years and then landing in radio. And I think how about just giving us like a Cliff Notes version of where your life went when you were in New Britain, and you had quite a history in music, and you did a lot of things.
Well, let's go there. Okay, so my dad was a professional sax player.
Wow.
He had a beautiful gold-plated silver Paris model saxophone. It was an alto. And when I was in fourth grade, I had the privilege of going and playing it at my school.
Oh.
And after a while, I just kind of gave up on it because I wasn't that good, and it took a lot to blow on that sax. I didn't think I had it. So my mother traded it in for guitars for me and my brother, who was 1 year younger. And so from playing guitar, taking guitar lessons, I would bring my guitar to school, and I would, meet other people who were musicians. And one day, one of the kids, when I was like 13, said, "Hey, we're starting up a band, and we need a guitar player. Would you be interested?" So that's how I got involved with my first band. We were called the High Tones. So I was 13 years old playing in my first band, and we practiced a lot. We had gigs. We even played a wedding. So we never played nightclubs at that time. But I want to tell you that the sax player in that band and the guitar player in that band and the trumpet player in that band, all of us wound up later on in life playing together in the Detroit Soul, which a lot of people remember. We had a hit song played on the radio in 1967, All of My Life. So that's how it all began in the High Tones.
Wow. Can we hear an excerpt of can we just hear a bit of All of My Life? From
I brought it, I had the 45
Andy,
in the car.
Put the needle on the record player and wind her up, and let's just hear a few bars of All of My Life.
All of my life, I've been longing for you, girl. Still standing still at the one I need you. I can't understand how I'll get by, 'cause I need you day and night. And all of my life, yeah, all of my life. The sun will shine and the rain will never fall, but my love for you keeps growing more and more. Oh, please believe me, baby, that's how much I love you. Please stay with me, girl, all of my life. Yeah, right by my side. Yeah, day and night.
Wow, wasn't that fantastic?
I can't believe his voice.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, now how far did your group go? I mean, did you make the major
Plainville.
markets?
No, I'm sorry. I had to say Plainville.
I think the farthest we went was 50 miles. No, actually, in the summertime of 1967, our manager booked us on the road. So we played, weekly, a week engagement on Nantucket Island. We did a week up in Revere Beach. We did a week or two in Newport, Rhode Island. We played so many places. I mean, so we were on the road the entire summer. And then when the summer ended, I made up my mind I was going to leave and go to college in Boston and pursue radio and television. And the reason I pursued radio and television is because, and this is kind of a God thing, I believe, and I believe in God. So
Oh yeah.
when I was in high school, I was asked to run for the Marx City Council. So every one of the high schools in New Britain was sending a representative to the actual city hall, city council, and they put my name in to run against a couple of other high school students at Pulaski High School. And I had to give a speech on stage in front of, the student body and all the teachers. And I didn't write the speech. One of the AAA students that we had wrote it for me. And I was shaking like a leaf. I'll never forget, I was standing there at the mic stand, and my hand was shaking. I can barely read, but I guess I did well enough because as we were walking out, filing out of the auditorium, going back to our classes, my biology teacher, Mr. Donahue, who was the announcer at our football games, over the loudspeaker, he came up to me, put his arm around me and said, "Bart," which was my name, "I never knew you had it in you." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You sounded just like you were on the radio." I said, "Really?"
Wow.
So that kind of was my encouragement. When the colleges came around to our high school, one of them stood out. It was Cambridge School of Business and Broadcasting, a junior college in Boston, located right in Kenmore Square, right next to Fenway Park. Mm-hmm. And so I wound up going there in September of 1967.
Wow. So that's how you started your great career. Right now, you must have went right from your first job, probably right over to WDRC. Wasn't that right?
No. That ain't the way it works, Dave.
Oh,
okay,
it isn't.
So anyway, I go to classes, and I go to speech class, and they took away my New Britain way of speaking, and they taught me diction, and just how to breathe properly. That diaphragmatic breathing thing.
Where you talk from down here.
And I developed a pretty good speaking voice. So much so that when I'd go home on weekends, which I did because I had a fiance, believe it or not, right out of high school. I used to go home on weekends, and my friends, the guys who I used to play with in the band, they'd say, "Stop talking like that. You don't talk like that. You got to talk like you used to talk." And then when they got used to that, they said, "I want you to do the weather. Do the weather for us." Okay, so at our school, we had a saying or a slogan, "Learn by doing." So they put us in like a radio studio with records, and I auditioned for the school radio station, and they put me on the air. I did like an hour once a week. Well, I think it was my second time on the air. There were some students standing outside the glass, and they were knocking on the glass. And so I got off of my stool, and I walked over, and I said, "Hi, guys, what do you want?" They said, "Oh, we were just listening to you, and we were wondering what you're doing here." And I said, "Oh, I'm doing my show. I do an hour." And they said, "No, we want to know what you're doing here working on college radio, because you sound like you belong on a professional radio station making money." That's all I needed to hear. I decided I was going to make a tape, and lo and behold, I did get hired working weekends, because I went home every weekend anyway from Boston, up on Meriden Mountain. They call it Radio Mountain.
You made it to the top.
WLAE.
The foreground music station.
I made it. I made it to the top, man.
Yeah, I did
so
too.
I started working there. I worked there starting in January of 1968. So my rise to the top of the mountain was only a few months.
Yeah, and I think I started at that same station in February of 1969. I started there. So
I beat you there.
Yes,
I beat you to it.
Yes, you did.
And it was LAU?
LAE, the foreground music station.
The foreground music station?
Yes, WLAE.
We actually broadcast to like 4 states.
Yeah. The station was owned by Paul DiServino. He was the chief engineer of WPAT in New Jersey. And,
that's right.
And so, and the rest, a lot of people got their starts. Bryant Thomas got his start there. I took over for Bryant for filling one night while he needed the night off, and that's how I started my radio career.
Bob, it's interesting, excuse me, only because I know Dave and I were talking about this off the air. I understand that you had a different name before you got into radio, and I know it's Bart Mazzarella, and we said we wouldn't go down this road, but he mentioned Bart.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, we got to talk about how you came up with the name Bob Marx from Bart Mazzarella. How did all that happen?
Well, my father's name was Bartholomew Mazzarella, and that's my name. So I have his name, but we have different middle names, so I'm not a junior. My father was a beautician. In other words, he owned beauty salons.
Yep.
He was very creative. He was the head beauty consultant at G. Fox & Company in Hartford at one time. and everybody knew him. They called him Bob. I don't know why they called him Bob, but everybody called him Bob. So even his family called him Bob, which was really strange. But because my dad passed away when I was 4, and I wanted to honor him, when they said you got to come up with an air name that's different from yours, because yours is too Italian, whatever. So I came up with Bob, and then I was born in the month of May, so I thought I'd call myself Bob May or Bobby May. But then that sounded a little hokey, cheesy. I wasn't a teen idol, so Bobby May didn't quite fit. And then I took May and I made it Marx, M-A-R-K-S. And then I said, well, if I'm going to be a celebrity, I'm going to have to sign autographs. And I think if I ended it with an X and slash it, it might be kind of cool. So that's how I became Bob Marx. There you have the story. Now
Amazing.
You know the rest of the story.
I think it's great when he said his high school that their motto was "Learn by doing."
Yes.
I think it sounds like Connecticut School of
Well,
Broadcasting all those years later.
Learn by doing.
It's always been about actually getting behind the equipment and doing it. And oh my God, that's amazing. So then, Bob,
If you have an average voice and average intelligence,
But above average
above
ambition.
average ambition.
Yeah, above
Yep,
average
that's what it is. Yeah, well, that's really what it is. And Bob always had it, and Bob managed to follow his radio career. But Bob, where was your first really paid gig, professional? Once you got off of Meriden Mountain, where did you go from there?
okay, I actually got hooked up with another station in downtown Meriden, WBMI.
I
Oh,
worked
wow.
there too.
Yeah. Yep.
And that station
Silver
later
City.
on became known as KISS.
Yep, I remember it. Yep.
So I was doing the morning show. So I did an actual show. I wasn't, just an announcer on the hour and a half hour. Because at my first station, I did really news at the top of the hour and weather at the bottom of the hour, and then we played tapes.
Okay.
But at WBMI, I actually had a chance to spin 45s or albums and actually do a show, and I was Bob Marx. Now, I did that for a number of months until I got a draft notice. In '69, I got a draft notice, and I had to leave in November of 1969, and I thought that was the end of my career. I really did. But it was really just the beginning of my career, right, guys?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So thank you so much for your service. How long were you in for? When did you get out and continue on with radio, or did you do anything with radio while you were in the service?
Have you ever heard the saying "weekend warrior"?
Oh yeah.
Okay, what does that mean? You're in the
That
Army
means you.
Reserves
Yeah, you
or
serve. on the-
National Guard, right?
Okay. Yep.
But that also means you've got to go and train just like regular Army guys.
Yeah.
You go away for a number of months. They teach you how to fire M16s,
Yep.
throw hand grenades, crawl underneath barbed wire fences, and all that. And live in platoons. In World War II barracks, I did down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and eat the mess hall food. So I did that, and then every summer we would go away to a regular base like Fort Devens and Fort Dix in New Jersey for 2 weeks every summer, and you'd go 1 weekend a month at a local facility. In my case, it was in West Hartford at Headquarters 76th Division.
Yep.
And you do 1 weekend a month and Monday nights, every Monday night. And so that was my life for a while, even early on in my radio career. But when I got back from basic training at AIT, they didn't have my job open anymore. So I had to find another job fast because I was married. Mm-hmm. So I wound up working in downtown New Britain at a men's store.
Oh,
selling
wow.
clothes. And I was just kind of biding my time before I hooked on with another radio station. And eventually, after being out of radio for a little while, I hooked on with WCNX. That's in Middletown.
Yep.
And while I was at CNX, I was doing middays, and I found out that they were hiring at WINF in Manchester to do nights. So I did middays in Middletown, and I did the night shift, not all night, but the night shift, like 7 to 11 or 7 to midnight. And that was late in '69. And from there, I got offered to do the overnights at WCCC in Hartford when Rusty Potts did
Oh, my
mornings.
God.
Yeah.
Triple C,
Okay,
all
so-
requests. Yep.
Yeah, so I did mornings, middays in Middletown and the overnights at CCC. And I didn't sleep. I had a really heck of a hard time at that, early juncture of my life and my career, but I felt like I needed to make money, number one, and I wanted to get as much experience as I could. Now, taking it a little further down the road, I quit CCC overnight because my health was endangered, and I didn't want to keep on doing it. And then I hooked on doing weekend news at WPOP. I worked with Robert Michael Walker, remember him?
Wow. Wow.
And so I did 2020 news on weekends in 1970. It was May, June, July, somewhere around there that I did that. And then I had an opportunity to go to combine those jobs and work one station making the same money as I did working two. And that was at WRCH AM and FM.
Wow.
And I was there for 5 years before I joined WDRC.
How did you get into DRC, Bob?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, yeah.
Well, okay, I had quit my job at WRCH after I had an argument with the general manager, who was expecting a little bit too much from me, I thought.
Yeah.
And he got on my case just a little bit too much, and I was a little irritated at him. So I said, I'm gonna give you my 2-week notice. And he said, well, where are you going to go? I said, well, that's for me to figure out. And I left there, and even though I had a wife, I had 2 kids, 2 little boys, and I had a home that we built. And I said, I really don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll figure it out. I found out that there was an opening at a discotheque in Torrington called the Dial Tone Lounge.
Oh, my God, yes.
I would go several nights a week and work from 8 at night till 1 in the morning, spinning records at the Dial Tone and announcing over the microphone, just kind of entertaining, the people who were dancing and, sitting around. And during the day, I really didn't do a whole lot, but my wife took my sons over to the beach side, Old Saybrook or Old Lyme. And she had a cottage there. And so during the day, I would go to the cottage and just hang out with my wife and kids. And one day as I was walking by myself on the beach, I came upon a group of teenagers. They're high school students. And I just happened to become friendly with them, and we were just talking. And they said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm actually a radio DJ, air personality, but I am not working at a radio station right now. I was telling them my story, and one of the females over there, one of the girls said, my boyfriend's father is the program director at WDRC. His name is Charlie Parker. And I said, Charlie Parker? Wow, really? And yeah, they're looking for summer replacement. And so I contacted WDRC, and they said, yeah, come on in and you can do an audition. You follow me so far?
Oh, yeah.
Well, on the day of the audition, I was about as nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof. And I walked in the studio, and there was an engineer who was going to record me. His name was Dave Oberson. You guys know who he is?
Right here.
I vaguely remember him.
I think they called him Doc Oberson.
Yes, Doc Overdub.
Yeah, he himself was a really good air personality, but he just never actually became a DJ at DRC, although he could have. Yeah. Anyway, I got through my audition, and I knew I really messed it up. man, it was stuff that should have been on the cutting room floor. And I apologized to
Look at
Dave. I
that.
said,
Look at
"Hey,
how. Look.
I'm sorry. I'm just so nervous." And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I'm going to give you another chance." Really? Yeah, I was like beside myself. Are you kidding?
Oh.
You're really going to give me another chance? He said, "Yeah, I think you show promise.
Wow.
You sound good, except for the mistakes you made." So he set everything back up again, and I started, and I got through the audition, and I think a couple of days later, I got a call saying, "You're hired."
Wow.
And so I kind of owe Dave a debt of gratitude for saving my career, which was in the dumpster at that time.
And of course, Val Russo, who was the young lady that I was dating back then, I guess, I don't know where she is now.
What goes around comes
but-
around.
but-
That's-
I'm
you
sorry,
were
I'm sorry,
the-
I can barely hear you. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, no, she was great. I remember that, and I remember that story way back when she first said that she saw this, this guy on the beach and wanted to, that's how things happen. And we know, Bob, there are no coincidences. And everything just came together that way.
Yeah, I remember talking to Charlie after your audition. Your second audition was a heck of a lot better than the first one.
Hey, Steve and Dave.
Yeah.
I can't hear anybody. You guys faded way in the distance. So
All right, I'll start
I don't know
again.
if we can even continue at this point because there's no communication between the two of us.
Well, you're coming off nice and clear, and that's what counts. But I remember talking to Charlie about you, and I said he's got a lot of potential and that. So he was hired you for. I think you started on the FM, and then you worked your way over to the AM side, which was back then. The FM was the farm club for the AM.
Yep. And Bob, you ended up being the Italian teddy bear. Everybody knew you. You were all over the place. And how long did you stay? How many different positions at DRC? And when did you decide to go on into the world of television?
Yeah, well, I started at WDRC doing afternoons, and then later on they put me at midday. So I worked there at 750 Main Street until we moved out to Bloomfield, Blue Hills Avenue, and I was doing FM. And then one day they called me in and said, "You're going to move over to the FM AM side." We had a guy named Len Thomas who goofed a little on the air, and next thing I know, he was out and I was in. So I used to follow Brad Davis.
Oh, wow.
And in those days, we didn't have any sports going on. And Charlie Farker, your dad, Steve, called me in the office one day and he said, I know you love sports, and I'm wondering if maybe you could come up with a show, a little idea for a show, maybe a 5-minute thing. And so we called it On Your Mark with Bob Marx, and it was on sometimes late in the afternoon somewhere, I think. I forgot what time. And it was a 5-minute commentary, and I thought I would enhance it with interviews. So I used to go to the Whalers games in the evening and do interviews. And so I talked basically about the Whalers. I talked about the Yukon Huskies. And that turned into a morning drive sports report 3 times every morning on the Brad Davis Show. And so these are the different positions that I held. I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drive in from Southington to be there at 5 o'clock and meet Brad there. And Ken Trumbull was our news director at the time, so I used to work in the newsroom with him and do my sports reports, on the half hour. And it really kind of changed things because eventually we attracted Yukon basketball and football. We got those contracts and turned DRC into something that we had not done before. And I was very proud to have a little hand in it.
Then you wound up going to another sports station as the voice of that sports station. It was a small sports station in Bristol, Connecticut. I forget, it was ESP, something like that. And how did you get started in there? How did that come about?
Well, it may have
Hey
been.
guys, I'm losing you again. I thought I was hearing you before, but now I'm not hearing you anymore.
You hearing us now?
Are you hearing us now, Bob? Bob is not hearing us now.
Not hearing us. Anyway. Well, he was the voice of ESPN.
And I remember he did the sports for a while on NBC 30 also.
Yes.
Yep,
he
yep.
did. Yep.
He built quite a career out of sports.
And how. So
Amazing.
it's amazing. So did you hear that, Bart? Or Bob?
You don't know what to call me, huh? Bart or Bob? I do that. I confuse people.
He thinks you're Bart. I think you're Bob. You know, I go figure. I just always think of what they were when they were in the station.
We have dinner together occasionally when we're I'm down in Florida. I'm only 45 minutes from his house in Florida.
Yep.
So we get together, and now he's got me used to calling him Bart. You know, in the beginning I kept calling him Bob.
Hasn't happened to me yet.
Yeah,
Anyways. Can't happen.
But here in Connecticut, you're Bob Marx.
Well,
so how did that happen at ESPN? You got to become the voice of ESPN.
Well, a guy I work with at Channel 30. Now, I don't think we ever talked about my gig at Channel 30. I was hired to do weekend sports anchor back in 1980. So I was doing my morning sports, my midday show. I was covering sporting events at night. I even went to the World Series when the Yankees were in the World Series.
Wow.
And all that. And I was doing a lot of traveling, and I became known as a sports reporter. And so they were looking for somebody to do the weekend sports anchor at Channel 30, and I auditioned for it, and they gave it to me. So I did that. It was 12 hours each day, Saturday and Sunday, and I really missed my wife and kids because during the week I didn't hardly see them at all because I was always dedicated to working for Big D and my sports career and all that. And so I told them after doing it a few times, hey, look, I really enjoy myself, but I can't do this anymore. So I gave it up. So I gave up my TV career. Yeah, they were terrific. I really enjoyed my time there. And, I wasn't even nervous going on television, even though I'd not done TV before. But when they point to you and the camera's on and you start going, I compare that to, it's like breathing underwater. Yeah. That's how natural it was.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and how did ESPN come about?
Again, through contacts that I had, a guy that I worked with at Channel 30, he was an engineer, and he went over to become the head of engineering, I believe, over at ESPN. And I think Dick McDonough was, am I right, Dave? Wasn't Dick McDonough doing the network voice at ESPN at one time? Yeah,
Dick then moved to Florida, I believe, or Kansas City, one of the two. And then you came in and started doing the
So they had an opening, and I got a call, and I didn't even have to audition. They said, you've got the job if you want it. I said, yeah, I want it. And so I wound up doing that from 1974 sometime till I left Connecticut in 1987. And I really loved my time there because, I recorded most of the things. I recorded promos and all the rest at SportsCenter, right where my hero, Chris Berman, used to do SportsCenter.
Yep.
And I met a lot of the guys I used to watch on ESPN. And it was fun. It was really great to go there. Nice facility right next door to Southington and, in Bristol.
I remember.
And I know Dave worked there for quite a number of decades, right?
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, it was a trailer when he went there.
Yeah.
It started out.
Well, it was one building. And then it just bloomed out. So, but it's great.
Well, so pretty much, Bob, I can't thank you enough. I know you're always out and about, and for connecting us today from all the way from Florida. And I know you're heading up to Connecticut to see some of the gang for our big reunion. And we thank you for that. And just thanks. And give our love to the family. And we'll be DRCing you soon.
Hey, guys. It's been a blast. I really enjoyed it. You guys are some of my best friends in my life. I appreciate you and love you. So God bless you both.
God bless you. Take care.
Love you too, Bob. God bless.
Have a safe trip.
Bye-bye.
and